And living authentically. And since we're in this world of cancel culture and fucking PC shit, and I believe that mainstream media has brainwashed people over the years. And unfortunately, people are accepting things as the quote-unquote norm. Now, with me, I mean, I've been doing a lot of self-help and self-development over the years, and especially when I've been doing my martial arts combat training as well. And I look, and I don't mean this to be judgmental, but when I look around, and I'm not just saying out in public, but the shit that you see on TV or whatever flashes on your screen and the internet, whatever, or what you hear, when you start thinking about it, or when you start to think for your own, you notice that a lot of people are asleep. And there really is a lot of bullshit going on. And then over a period of time, when you're experienced, you're more privy to these things that they tend to slip to you. And one of the things that I have noticed, and for those of you who think, oh, well, Chris, you're going to be chauvinistic when you say this, and oh, yeah, this and that. Oh, you're just so macho and all that. No. Well, here's the thing. I mean, I've also done research on my family heritage and history. And so not only am I Filipino, but I've discussed this in a previous episode where I found out that I have multiple European ethnicities, and I have Knights and Vikings in my ancestors, whether that be Swedish or even in England. So with me, and to talk about this topic of, I believe that men should be men and behave like men. And if for some who don't want to hear this, hey, I'm not going to take this into insult. You can go and leave. But I will talk about this to the people who want to listen. And I think that, going back to my topics about narcissistic people and toxic people, that to avoid these types of relationships, and specifically I'm talking about whether it's marriage or you're dating, I think that men do have to step up as men. And in order for that to happen, they've got to take risk and have a spine. And going back to what I was saying about cancel culture, how it tends to weaken guys, and you know, you should be doing this instead of that, or you're too macho and all that. Well, according to the history that I've researched, we were going into battles and wars. And so for people to say that and to switch up the narrative, I think that's a bunch of bullshit, because I think it's in our genetics to go out with a purpose. I mean, we've hunted for so many decades and centuries now. So why would that be such a foreign thing right now? And I don't like that, how it's being advertised as this whole toxic masculinity nonsense. And basically you're abusing males, saying that it's bad to be a male, and oh, you're too macho, or let's show when you're more feminine side. Well, you know, here's the thing. I believe that, yeah, everyone's a person. It's okay to show emotion every once in a while, but specifically with guys, I think that it's a lost art, and growing a spine is a lost art. You see, if it's something like this pandemic that we've been going through, and people have been entitled, they've been expecting these handouts, and they'll complain about certain things and bitch about certain things. But when something goes rough like this pandemic, and you're basically losing your livelihood, the economy is going shitty, and all this other stuff, you got riots going on, you got desperate people breaking into your homes, all that stuff about toxic masculinity goes out the door. Because in the end, you're going to have to do self-defense, protect yourself in some certain way. And I don't mean only in combat, because people could go and break into your home and steal your stuff because they're desperate. And yes, I will get into that in a moment. But also with your livelihood and getting food. And also your finances. A lot of people have lost their jobs. And what's the... I believe now, well, I did do an episode about this where the cases of unemployment or people signing up for unemployment benefits in the U.S. are over 800,000. And that was a couple months ago where I did that episode. And I've seen I've seen a couple of articles regarding that. So we could say around that, it's about 800,000, maybe even more now. A lot of businesses have closed. But my point is, and I'm also going to go into the idea of people getting desperate, because I mentioned this in another episode where in my neighborhood, people's Social Security benefits are getting stolen in the mail, in addition to unemployment benefits. I've seen people drive like they've never driven before. I mean, where I drive and commute, there's always people who drive insane. But I've noticed these days that a lot of people have been driving just crazy shit. They've been doing some weird shit out there. And so with that said, and growing a spine, it's important to have it during these times. And I can't reiterate that enough about, I said the quote, hard times create strong men and women. I will add women too. So there's that old school quote of hard times create strong men and women. Strong times create, or strong men, strong women create good times, and then so forth. And if you don't know the quote, then I encourage you to go look that up. But that quote was about, I believe that was made in the 30s or the 40s. So definitely during the war era. But I so believe that I think people, and especially the guys, especially with the younger guys, owning the masculinity. And if taking these risks, you have the sense of growing a spine. And I believe that it builds you as a character, or it builds your character. And I'm a big believer in that, being in martial arts as well, because martial arts, well, provided you have the right instructor, where it builds confidence and character. Because in life, nothing's going to be easy. We could all see that right now, where, and I don't have to say it again, you just look around. People are desperate, and people are losing their jobs, their livelihoods. And so again, this idea of toxic masculinity, I think that's been going on for a little too long. And people have forgotten that, and people have forgotten how to grow a spine and to take risks as well. And it's unfortunate that times like these, where it's needed to grow a spine and to take risk in order to survive and thrive, unfortunately, I don't see a lot of the younger generation, that may be a foreign concept to them because they haven't gone through these hardships. And then that leads me to my point about, people who are narcissists, people who are toxic, that when times are rough, they haven't built up that experience. They haven't built up that spine. Yeah, the life experience and the spine to handle these types of things. And then when it all comes down to it, they're thinking that, oh, well, it's okay for me to be so emotional and not keep my head on a swivel. But unfortunately, when they've been taught that, especially with things such as the mainstream media, it affects relationships such as marriages and just simply dating relationships. And then you see people don't know who they are. And people they go all over the place with their emotions. They can't be centered, they can't be balanced. They can't focus and all that other good stuff. And unfortunately, that leads into other areas in their life as well. And when people don't have a spine, people don't take risks, I think that it affects their integrity as well. And I'll be specific with integrity is doing the right thing at the right time. Like, I'll give you a few examples. I know if there's someone in my family who doesn't keep their word because they haven't grown a spine, they haven't gone through hardships as well, they don't have the experience, they lack the maturity. And so if I need them to help me in something that's extremely important and where it requires not only me to do that job, but to have help as well, if they're going to be all loose noodle, flimsy and shit, and they don't know what the fuck they're doing, how can I trust that person to have them have my back? Or the same thing goes, if maybe some of you at your job or business, where how can you have that business partnership or relationship if the people that you're counting on don't have a moral compass, they don't have a spine as well, and they're going to be turning their backs on you? Rather, they should be having your back when the time comes, and then you reciprocate that. And so that leads me to marriages and dating relationships. If people don't center themselves and balance themselves, find their purpose and grow that spine, maybe take risk in life, staying grounded, for me, that's an unstable person. Hence what I was talking about with narcissists. And it's always me, and then they start blaming shit, and they don't even take the responsibility. They turn shit onto you or anyone else, but other than them, because they want to look good. But for me, that's an unstable person with no spine, has no moral compass. And so if a person can't do that, that's going to be affecting everything else in their lives. And so my whole point with this, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this, I'm going to cut this in a few minutes, where the art of, or the concept rather, of growing a spine has been lost. Because unfortunately the media, they downplay it and they demonize it, especially with guys. And taking the initiative, getting on a path, and owning masculinity. And that's great if women, hey, that's great to be a success. I'm not against that at all. But I'm talking specifically for guys who are just, they're all over the place. They don't have that purpose. They haven't grown that spine because they've been told all this time, and it's been advertised that, oh, this toxic masculinity thing, and you need to let your emotions out more. And again, I'll say it where, yeah, we're all human. We are going to show emotion at times, but it's a matter of having that balance as well. And I think with guys, and specifically, and I know this too, being in combat as well, where we're trained and we have this in our genetics to not be so emotional if we're out on the battlefield. And you know what? There is a balance. I'm not saying go out on the battlefield, be a stone warrior, no soul, and just stoic. Or not, I don't want to use the word stoic, but rather just have no soul and then come back and be like that in your marriage or your family relationships. No, what I'm saying is just to have that balance. And unfortunately, these days, especially the past few years, the balance, the pendulum has been the other way of being way too emotional. And if we have too many emotions going on, then we're going to have entitlement going on. And then people are going to think that that's the norm, and then that affects the relationships.